Manishikha Baul is an India-based independent performing artist, theater and ensemble director, and arts advocate. She instructs students from all over the world in Odissi, an Indian traditional dance form, and she also teaches classes about the principles of embodied physical movement practice and its role in social community development. She's worked as a visiting professor with Ashoka University and has volunteered as a co facilitator with the Gaz Theatre Trust. Most recently, she served as the artistic director and facilitator of Clay, a historical play telling stories of the invisible and erased voices from small towns and cities throughout India. Monk and I spent many nights in Berlin ranting about politics, life, and love, and between us, she's got a killer rendition of the power rock ballad 25 Minutes. Join us now as we dive into the divide. Welcome, Miss Manishikha Baul. We're so thrilled to have you here to talk with us, one of our favorite people in the entire world. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Mark. I feel really humbled.
To get us started, what kind of theater do you make?
If you make theater.
What kind of performance?
Yeah, we put a label on it. What type of work performance do you do? Yeah, and make.
So I work with multiple and various kinds and diverse people and communities. Sometimes I make theater. Sometimes I make a performance piece. Sometimes I am just facilitating so others can figure something for themselves. And I believe that all of this kind of plays into the process of devising for me. So I would say that I'm constantly devising, whether I'm in the kitchen or I'm redoing my study decor or my living room decor or my terrace layout or in the rehearsal room or studio or on the streets protesting or working with political alliances. I believe I make devised theater.
Okay, yeah. The follow-up then what qualifies something as devised or devising, or like where's the line? What are the qualities? What should we look for in devised as a label?
So for me, devising starts always from an empty space, which is an empty space of mind, of body, of ideas, or of a path that we are kind of tied to. And this constant exploration through people, space, bodies, kind of charts the path of what we are devising and how we would devise. And I almost want to constantly go back to that process where even if things are not working out, can we just be with the process and not kind of choose the safe path of, oh, let's write this down and construct it in our head and then maybe go back and play it. And it's been very challenging, but that's also been the breakthrough points for every work that I have kind of tried to make, where the allowance for something new to emerge that is a collective new rather than a person's perspective, let's say, or one person's story. Which means the devising process takes a lot of collective effort, trust building, and it's a long process. So yeah, for me, devising in a country like India, which comparatively to the world, South Asia is economically, in resource wise, for things like arts and theater, are not as evolved as Europe, let's say, or America. So our resources are limited, and only the very privileged get to work in the arts or build arts, which is why, for me, devising becomes a critical process for people to be involved. And therefore, the process allows various kinds of people to get involved and engaged and exercise agency, whether privileged or not. So that's how I look at my devising process.
Earlier, you mentioned whether you were making theater or whether you were making a performance piece. And I am curious, what for you is the distinction between making theater and making a performance piece?
Um, at this point, I would also like to say that I'm kind of becoming a person who's not married to the form.
Mm.
And, whatever the end result could be, a film, could be the mode of cinema, could be a performative body, could be a collective performative body, could be theater, could be dance, could be music, could be a podcast. It does not matter. But that is exactly where the idea of devising kind of comes through, where what does the collective ensemble think the best form to
Mm.
articulate the story would be, whatever the story is, right? Everything is a story, anyways. So, how I would distinguish between theater and performing arts is, it's not something very binary. But what I sense is that when I am building a performance piece, there is an element of I, the who this performer actor is, that
Mm.
plays a major role in the characterization, the movement, and the politics or the story that you want to say in a performative piece. However, in a theatrical piece, the I kind of is masked, and I enter a character that, of course, may have come from the I, or part of the I. Yet in theater, it's a roadmap where I almost have to let go of the I, which is Monka or Manishikha, and enter somebody else's life and trajectory, which is the work the body does for the process in a devised work, right? How do I embody another being or another character, whatever the character is, whether it's a human character or a different species, I don't know, right? But in a performative piece or in a performance, I would say that even if I am a non-human species, an element of who I am strongly plays out. So it is my body that is telling you something. It is not a different character's body that is telling you something. And I'm not going to say that a performative piece does not have the space for multiple characters to exist within that body. I think it does,
Mm.
but the I holds strongly as well. So yeah, for example, and this is just an example, Marina Abramovich is Marina Abramovich in her piece, right?
Mm.
Every performative act is her. Yes, she's talking about various things through her body, but that wouldn't be a theatrical piece for me. Well, if she were to, whatever, become a Mughal king, let's say, in a piece, that would be theater for me.
So the transformation of the other. So
Yes.
going back to the embodiment. So like for you, embodiment is one thing. Is this idea of putting on another person or another things in using yourself. How as a facilitator or as when you're working with others, how do you go about doing that when you're also not that person? Now, is it a judgment? Are you looking from the outside? Is it a process that you found that like we've arrived at it, or like how for you is that do you arrive there?
When I do facilitate or direct something, my goal is to empower the actor to find the character in their body. So as a director, I do not impose the character on the actor. Let's say we have taken a rough idea of a character that the actor has to embody, and then together, or sometimes individually, but together mostly, we kind of start to build that character through the body, which takes hours in rehearsal room. How does this character move? What is its daily habits? What's its socio-political history? What its location like? What are the things they faced to become who they have? And I think it's very important to locate whatever that character is, interspecies, across species, meta, or in the real world, or in the fantastical world, to also create a world, an environment, and a history of that character. Otherwise, it remains on the paper, and it's a paper character moving. So I don't think that there is something that is very specific that I look for. I always try to direct the actor or facilitate the actor, pushing their strengths towards finding that character, in fact. And then what, and the most important part also is, I work a lot with ensemble and not solo work. So the character emerges through other characters. It's never you're by yourself. So this whole body listening, fully being present to your co-actor, and whatever the co-actor's character is going to define and bring about each other's characters alive, and therefore the sequence of events that the story is going to tell. So I don't know, Mark, if I am able to, answer what you're looking for, but this is the process I follow. And I sort of open the space for the actor to explore everything that they need to develop that character. It could be material goods, it could be a city they want to visit, it could be somebody else that they want to live with or walk with or hear from, or kind of play with for like a week, 10 days, to figure out what their lives are like. So anything and everything that the actor needs beyond the rehearsal room is what I, as a director, would like to encourage and push the actor towards. Instead of me saying, I don't like you doing this way, I would rather you do it this way. But you see, I am not embodying that character, the actors. So here, the actor's agency, their choices and decisions that they want to make about the character, becomes very critical for me as the director. Yes, it is always in collaboration, always in conversation with the actor, and the larger ensemble. So it's also everybody giving feedback about and suggesting what could take the stakes higher, what could create the tension, what could be about the push and pull, you know. So yeah, the joy lives in building it together and finding it rather than cerebrally drawing it and then trying to put it in the body. It's just not worked for me.
You've used the term facilitator and you've used the term director. Are you using those interchangeably? And when you are in the facilitator or director role, are you also performing? Are you a member of the ensemble, or is there still some sort of hierarchy?
Um, I believe in a lateral, non-hierarchical space, always, or structure, or institution, or system. And I believe in equity. So my politics lies around left socialism, which is what I also try to bring in the platforms when I'm working. So often this comes as a big challenge because I try to occupy the space mostly as a role that I'm playing, which is I am the director in this theater or in this performance, while you're
Mhm.
the actor, while you're the light designer, while you're the sound designer, while you're the production manager. So it's not, I try that we are all working in a multi pronged way where we, let's say, we are all on the same plane in the same circle, just playing different roles, right? However, there are times when a project kind of needs kind of a leader. So that's when my role as a facilitator pops in. So when I have to tie production, sound, light, space, audience, ticketing, marketing, all of that together, sometimes I have to play the facilitator, but yet I try to not step upon someone else's shoes, right? Because everybody's there because they know their job well. I don't know how to do the best light designing. I'm not a production manager. I'm not a producer. I am not the actor in the ensemble. So these are spaces I should not interfere and let the artist explore and be a fruitful collaborator. Does it always work? No. It does
Mm.
not work because we are all part of the same society, which has grown up in hierarchical ways. So
Sure.
often I am looked at as the boss or the mother or the parent or the teacher or the mentor in the room. And that creates a lot of tension because I would like people to make their mistakes and then kind of pick it up from there. But it has posed a big challenge in the past years, especially in bigger ensembles and bigger projects where there are interpersonal dynamics playing out between, let's say, actors, production team, directorial team, blah, blah, blah.
Mm.
And somehow, sometimes the subtext of it is the director has to solve it all, right? They have to step into interpersonal dynamics playing out or things not working at some point. And that's when, unless it is uh, unless it is at a point where I feel it's a systemic problem. So let's say somebody is being bullied or oppressed because of their lack of privilege or entitlement, or because they belong to a marginalized location, I would step in, but that would be as a facilitator, not director. But apart from that, I try to stay away.
Mm.
Yet we are all geared, and including me. I mean, I can't say that I always act as someone who's egalitarian in the space. I can't say that. I'm sure I use my directorial and facilitator boss powers. I'm sure. Whether I would like to, no. But sometimes do I do it? Yes. Sometimes do the rest of the team behave like babies? Yes.
Yeah.
But would we like to? No. So that's the struggle, but that's also the joy, because we have been able to function and create ensembles where there's more equity, more egalitarian space, and more agency for every ensemble member to kind of voice, ideate, brainstorm, and shape the work together. And for me, it's not just the cast. I always bring the production team into the rehearsal space, always. So um, my sound, light, space designer, costume designers, production managers are all part of the rehearsal room for at least 6 months before a show is opening, so that if they have feedback and suggestions to shape the work differently, I want them to be there. And whatever, and unless they are part of rehearsal and understand how these bodies function and how they are part of it, I don't think that bringing in a light designer or a sound designer at the last minute does justice, because we've been building this for a year, and you think their work is so insipid that you give them 3 days or 2 days and just almost tell them this is how I want it. But who are you to say that this is how you want it? It's their job to tell you, in fact, your idea is crap. This is how it would look good. This is how it should be. This is what the sound is going to be. This is how this space should shape up like. And that is integral to my process. So when I do audition for actors, I also open the call for sound designers, space designers, and whoever it is that I need, production manager, so that I have someone to guide me also. And I always also work with an assistant director so they can critique me, say the things that I'm blind to, and not be my yes man. So that's the kind of process I am working with, and I hope to make it more robust and more inclusive as I go ahead.
Sure. Yeah.
I love working with designers and how they bring something to the space that is so different than the play and the rehearsals before they get involved.
Yeah, I think like it's definitely like more of that collaborative process. Like you said, like you're blind to what lighting or sound maybe bringing to the table. So bringing in someone who's an expert in that field, or at least passionate about that in a way that you're not, means that you're going to be aligned. I wonder, like, so how involved are these designers also in the devising? Do you bring them in as things are being created? Things like, this may not make it to the end product, but here's where we're at right now. What are your vibes? Like, how do you, is there is there a protocol? Because it sounds like you've got like a system, you're developing a system for this process. Like it's rather, organized. So yeah, I think it's very how are you implementing this?
Well, I like to call this framework a feminist intersectional devising framework. And I'm interested in writing a book on it, but I haven't yet figured out how I'll start and if I even know how to write a book. But at some point, I would like to pen it down, because it's been the work I've done for the last at least 15 to 17 years of thinking what this hierarchical, patriarchal framework of the director at the top and everybody else sitting down kind of can be shifted and changed, especially in countries like India, where the gender divide is huge, huge. And till date, when we think of the big directors of India or playwrights of India, names of women barely make it, So you often question, why are these spaces historically occupied by a certain gender who comes from a certain class, certain caste, a certain economic background, and how have they managed to, dominate the space in a way where no person from the other gender kind of, it's not like they were not making work. It's just that that's not documented in the way, or you don't see them in the way that you would see a male playwright or a director in the world. I mean, we all talk about, Hamu and Grotowski and Stanislavski and Peter Brook, and you name it, right? And how many? It's not so easy for the women's names to come as easily for us also as theater students and theater makers. So somewhere I feel like the historical work was not just done by the director. There were so many people involved who are invisible and erased in that documentation process, or in what labor, skill, knowledge, and artistic value they brought to every work. So, it's my need almost to create a framework where the director is not held at the top. And I would like to see a more fluid, free-flowing kind of a system And I hate to say the word system, because I never want theater to kind of find a rigid foundation that it can't move from that system. The idea is to constantly keep evolving and be so fluid, so that theater can evolve with the times and context and the political situations that we are thrown into, and for it to become a space for anybody and everybody to articulate what they want to articulate. So, to come to the question you were asking, are my designers, whether they're space, sound, light, or production, are they part of my devising process? Yes, they are actually. They are very much part of the devising process, because I always imagine the work through all these lenses. I don't keep it for the end. So, if my opening scene is something, I'm already thinking, okay, it's raining in my opening scene. Now, I don't know how to create rain in a closed studio space. Should be created with imagery? Should be created with sound? Should we literally throw water on the audience? What are we going to do? Right? So, yes, the director has the idea, and maybe after throwing it to all these designers and then brainstorming together along with the actors and all of the other artists, you think of something which is perhaps going to be the best choice. Now, me alone could not have done it. And then depends on what kind of resource and money you have for that production. So often, we work in a country where we are always doing things with jugaad. Jugaad is a word which has hit the Oxford Dictionary. It means you make do with whatever is available. Don't ask for anything. Don't ask for anything. This is all you have. How do you make things, right? Because imaginations can go wherever, but at the end of it, resources are tight, very tight in poor countries, especially for theater. So, we work with torch lights, we work with kitchen lights, we work with our home lamps, all kinds of things. We bring all kinds of furniture from our own homes, curtains, this, that, and we create whole plays, like, because there are so many plays with zero production budget, and most are so. So, yes, the great thing is we have a great resource pool, because a light designer is not just a light designer here. A sound designer is not just a sound designer here. An archiver or a documenter is not just a documenter in India. We are actually all mostly multi-skilled. So everybody kind of comes from theater, has done acting, or been part of a theater ensemble for years and learned their basic lighting and sound and whatever has drawn them into. And then they've taken that forward or explored that more. But everybody is rooted in some kind of practice, which is a more holistic way of. It's just like I've come from dance, and then there'll be someone who's come from music, but they're all doing different things now, but that knowledge base lies. So most of the people I work with have kind of cross skills, which is why it's a pool of intelligence then. It's a pool of ideas, instead of everything being on me as a director. Why should I put myself in that place when I have so many people to help and for us to build? So it becomes a collective responsibility as much as it becomes a collective challenge.
You mentioned several white male theater, famous theater directors. Who are your influences?
Many people have asked me this question. Everyday friends ask me, who's your favorite this? Who's your favorite that? And I have really thought about this for years, and I've realized nobody is my favorite. I draw from very many people, not always famous. I draw from common people's lives, actually, mostly. People on the street, my own home, my friends, their homes, my peers, my teachers, and of course, the reading that we've done in life. Um, some of the people who have inspired me despite their problematic lives and politics are actually uh, Picasso, uh, Michael Jackson. Shameful to say these names, but it's a difficult ethical question which we keep debating, art or
Sure.
artist. But I am not into cancel culture. So I believe that human beings are capable of doing immense good things and immense bad things together, as we see today in the world. So I am interested in drawing from the rich goodness that people have brought, dead or alive, and also learn from the grave sins and mistakes they've done.
Mm.
But I do not negate anyone or cancel anyone out. Um, there are many inspirations coming from India. Gandhi is a very big inspiration. We have many icons in India, both political and artistic. Tagore, and I draw from a lot of filmmakers. Um, but mostly I draw from common man and common people and common women and common people on the streets and roads and everyday life, because I think their lives are really rich, full of
Mm.
nuances. Nobody talks about them, but the stories are incredible. Little heroes all around. So yes, I'm most inspired from that, and I draw most of my work from there instead of the big names. Do I negate them? No, I love them all. I read them all. I try to motivate myself from them. I try to critique them. Uh, but yeah, I don't hold anyone very, very dear. The one person I would say who kind of touches my heart deeply, or I find them magical, is Frida Kahlo and Salvador Dali. And they're very different kind of madness,
Sure.
both of them. And yeah, I love their madness.
Okay. You talk a lot about the inspiration from an everyday person, from non artists, people who might not label themselves as artists, and who's and then who you're using them in your art, you're incorporating them, they're part of the process. Are they also the audience for you, or is there another audience to show, look what art isn't so precious, everybody can, like, what is, yeah, who are you trying to reach with these works? Is it to share as community, or yeah, well, yeah, open the space?
It's been way too long that the gates have been kept. Way too
Mm.
long. A performance art or a theater piece opens in a big auditorium and the doors open to the classes and the elites. Let's be fair, it's ticketed at a price which only a very few section of the society can kind of witness. Um, and for the longest while, I've been a classical dancer. And as a classical dancer in India, you are kind of at the top of the hierarchy of the pyramid in dance. Okay.
Mm.
And classical dancing is almost referred to as almost the divas coming down from the heaven to the stage to dance for you. That's the idea of the body. And I've kind of broken out of that. I don't want to be a diva. I don't want audiences gaze in that way, you know, where I have to satisfy their wet dreams. So I would like, and that's my effort, to open the gates of arts and especially theater, which is a community thing. It was never of the elite. The classes and the elite kind of appropriated it, no matter which culture or which part of the world. So I want to open those gates to common people. Is it always possible? No, it is not possible, especially when You're living in times where politically, in a country where there is almost an authoritarian rule, and you cannot tell the stories that you really want to tell in the way you want to tell, and so you have to uh, work in subversive, covert ways. Yet,
Mhm.
it is the story of the common man and what they're facing, and common people, what they're facing, and common women, what they're facing, and common trans people, and what they're facing, and children, and what they're facing, and the youth, and what they're facing, and all the marginalized, and what they're facing, and what their stories of love, desire, victory, challenge is. But can I open it up to the common man? No, I cannot, because those spaces don't exist. That access to them don't exist. They are not going to be able to, you know, find 3 hours, 2 hours out of their tight schedule of life to come to
Mhm.
a theater to watch something, honestly. Which is why when I work with at least 3 community spaces. Um, and the work is taking the art to people instead of expecting people to come to what you have created, and that is the process I am invested in as much, where my work cannot be tied to such precisions of production that it cannot be taken to places and spaces. If I have to do the play in someone's terrace, in their living room, in their veranda, on the street in front of their neighborhood, I should be able to mold the device piece in such a way that it can travel anywhere it needs to, so that it becomes accessible to a larger audience, the
Mhm.
audience who is common people and not the who's who or your friends or the artistic fraternity or the academic fraternity, which is pretty much who comes to watch, when it's gate kept. And I know that
Sure.
it's just an extension of that circle who's going to come and watch, and critique and whatever. But is that what I'm looking for? No. No. Does it make my job easy? No. Do I make money? No. None of that. I think that's what also drives me, that I want I want the gatekeeping to go away completely. Um, yeah, so just like we devise it together, and often when we're devising, there is a need to talk to people.
Sure.
So let's say we are developing a trans character. Okay. I don't identify as trans. Maybe in the team at that point nobody identifies as trans, so we've imagined a character without really asking a trans body anything.
Yeah,
So
for any
that
input, yeah.
yeah, that's a very not okay thing. So those are the times when I go deeply into extensive calls or sit down conversations with, let's say, at least 5 to 6 trans people who I know or I find, to say that, again, that becomes a collaborative consultative process where, yes, I can be the storyteller, but it's not my story. So I
Mm.
need people who can validate and say, yes, this is exactly the kind of lives we live, or the events pan out this way, or this is how my body feels. And then of course you audition and you choose actors, either who are trans or someone who's had some, if trans people are not available, then of course someone who's willing to kind of embody and go through that, right? And that's what I'm saying, that you cannot keep people out just because you have the power to articulate it through an artistic tool. It is people's work, it is people's medium, and they have to be part of every bit of it. And at the end of it, it's the audience you're making it for. So they have
Mhm.
the highest stake and they should be sitting at the top of the hierarchy, and not you as the director, honestly. That's how I feel, or that's how I try to navigate.
I know you said that you weren't interested in cancel culture, but is there any theater or performance that you think we don't need any more of that? The world's seen enough of that. If I never see this type of performance, this type of theater again, we're better off as a society.
Yes, a lot of theater. A lot of theater that talks about self-made men, a lot of theater that talks about gore and violence and power and misogyny, a lot of theater that is still talking about the West versus the East, a lot of theater that picks stories of the other, but it's the white people who are telling it or showing it. And I think that exactly that's the space that you need to hand over, you know, enough and more and more and enough of hogging spaces of privilege and entitlement and funding, which never comes to the people on their grassroots level whose stories are actually being told by people or stars or great theater makers, you know. So yeah, I am not interested. I'm not interested in popular musicals. I'm not interested in pure entertainment if it does not question, evoke, provoke. I'm not interested in any work that does not talk about human injustice or provokes you or pushes you to even think about what's happening around you. You know, yeah, it just doesn't do much for me. Looking pretty and feeling good and having a great evening of dancing and music and virtuosity of movements and bodies, and oh, what a great acrobat that person was. Oh, what a great acting that actor did. Who cares? I don't really. And I do not go to watch a theater to watch a great performance. I go to theater to be evoked, to be provoked, to hear a new story, to feel something that I do not feel in my everyday life. If I am going to, if I am still in the space of apathy and I only connect for those 30 minutes or 40 minutes and have a good time or have a cry out or feel rage and come back and forget about it, and next day I go about my life, I'm not interested in that work. Yes, will I go watch it for fun? I will, because I'm an artist. Will I make it, invest in it? No, maybe.
Sure.
You know, so I also, because I don't believe in cancel culture, I will watch everything. I love watching everything from trash to great things. You know, but that's perhaps not the line of work I would choose, which is why I'm perhaps going to remain a poor maker.
What would have to change for the theatrical landscape to become what you would like it to become? Like where it is all evocative, where it is all provocative, where we are challenging injustices with every artistic notion. Is there a way forward? Is there a path? Is there a trend other theater makers, performance makers can take to get on there?
I hope I had an answer. I hope I knew the answer to this. It's very difficult. It's been very difficult. But I think one of the things that has worked is when you don't see yourself as a competitor to another theater maker.
Okay.
And the more we realize that the power lies in collaboration, in holding space together, in standing for each other, in a collective understanding of what theater is, what it should kind of do for people, I believe those spaces of hierarchy will be broken more. The spaces of questioning authority and systems and institutions will be open more. There can be more accessibility for commons people to become part of theater. It's not like they don't do theater. It's just that they are never going to get the platform or the money or the fame for it.
Right.
And yes, I think that one of the biggest fight is against funding bodies. and funding bodies who choose to fund you based on a certain kind of proposal or ideation that they are looking for, right? Whether it's India or Europe or America, I would like to question a funding body and every funding body to say, what makes you think that the artist does not know their work? And what makes you think that a body practitioner or a filmmaker needs to write down a whole proposal of 3,000 words in English language, which suits your academic notion of theater or performing arts? And then you sit and decide who you're going to give the money to. If you have the money, your job is to give the money, right? And your job is to trust the artist who's proposed the work. And because their languages are different, which means somebody makes through the body, somebody through the voice, somebody through celluloid, and somebody through theater, you have actually no agency and no skill set and no knowledge to say whose work deserves this funding. The only way funding can work, especially in developing countries, is when you do not look at meritocracy as the pivotal decision-making, point, because meritocracy is debatable when you have not found the access, the exposure, the training in your life because of your own life location or social location or circumstances. How the hell will you ever be able to compete with someone who's found all of that before they were even born? And that is just wrong. That is injustice, in fact. And every time a funding, platform releases an open call, and it has these 5 to 10 questions of lengthy things that you have to answer, the best of theater actors, directors, and the best of dancers and musicians find themselves limited to even propose something because that's not their language. They're not academically trained to write that proposal. Why would you expect that? Why would you expect someone to articulate in English when that's not even their language? And there are so many such gatekeeping things. Or someone who's, you look at a CV and then you say, oh, they've studied here, there, and everywhere, and therefore they deserve this funding. Well, if they've studied there, here, and everywhere, they don't deserve it anymore. They've seen enough. Why don't you give it to someone who never saw anything, who never got that opportunity to go there and here and study, to know anything of anything, to at least open a little bit of a window for them to take their dreams, their thoughts, their ideas ahead? Is it going to happen? Not in the capitalist world. But will I stop trying? No, I will keep trying.
We could talk to you all night. And this has been very thought-provoking, but I wanted to thank you. I'm sure we both want to thank you for your time and your sharing and challenging the way we think. And I think this will be interesting to audiences. We're trying to tell people that there's more to theater than what's on Broadway.
Thanks again to Manishikha Baul for challenging us to think about theater as a tool to enact political change, as well as for giving us some insight into theater creation outside of the United States. If you want to learn more about Manishikha and her latest works, check out the links below. And if you like this interview and want to see more, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and join us next week as we dive into the devised.